Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Today, we are presenting our new product, SoterCoach. Short introduction, my name is Anastasia Vasina, and I'm Chief Product Officer in Soter Analytics. I'm also a medical doctor by background, and I worked in the field of rehabilitation. And when I worked with my patients, I often saw how injury affects their life and the quality of life. So I decided to move to prevention area. And more than 3 years, I'm working in Soter Analytics and translating from algorithm language to human language and back.
And I'm Matthew Hart. I'm the founder of Soter Analytics. I don't have a health and safety background initially, so I was actually an engineer. And this is the concept that Soter Analytics was built on. So I'll explain that in one of the next slides. But the injury problem that we're solving, depending on which country you're in, you'll call it ergonomic injuries, you might call it musculoskeletal injuries. These account for about a third of all workplace injuries, but they're also accounting for more than half of the cost of injuries within a workplace. And the reason they're costing so much is because while they happen quite frequently, they also take a very long time to recover from, and that's where the cost comes. The cost comes from rehabilitation, and the cost comes from lost productivity as well. So a little bit about the background on what Soter was built on. So the background that it was built on is actually a form of engineering called reliability engineering. I'm a reliability engineer. I worked in the mining industry in Australia for quite a while, and a couple of additional projects as well. And what a reliability engineer does is we work out when machines are starting to have problems, when they're starting to break down, and then we put in techniques or we put in interventions to stop that breakdown from happening. So if we think about the aircraft industry as an example, obviously you don't want an unplanned breakdown on something on a plane because the consequences can be very bad. So engineers and maintainers do a lot of work deciding when to do the right maintenance at the right time to stop things from going wrong. But airplanes are also filled with sensors. There's many sensors on all the different things that are actually picking up tiny little problems as they happen. And they're able to, stop the aircraft from taking off or land the aircraft and stop that little problem from becoming a big problem. So I did this for about 7 years. Then I was looking at health and safety, sitting in the same room as I was on the mine site in the middle of Australia, and saw that they were quite reactive. So waiting for little problems to become big problems before they would then do their root cause analysis and then try to stop that big problem from ever happening again. So Soter was built on the mission that we would put sensors on people. We would work out early on when things were going wrong, and we would help these workers by putting in interventions or changing the workplace, redesigning the workplace, basically helping them from avoiding musculoskeletal injuries. Our approach has grown over the last 3 or 4 years. So we started as a coaching company. Today we will be talking about one of our coaching products where we actually coach individual workers on avoiding injury risk. But we are now a data company which supplies data to all the different parts of an employee's life cycle. So we work with our customers to understand what sort of jobs they're hiring for, and then helping them actually match the right candidate to the job to give the candidate the best chance of getting through a long career with our customer. We then help these workers by training them in a way that builds good working behaviors from day one. So there was a saying we had in the mining industry, how you start is how you finish. I think that's a saying in many industries. So we want them to start in the right way so that they finish their career healthy, happy, hopefully ready to start a retirement or their next stage of their career. Talk about a couple of products we have as well around the continuous improvement space. So how to improve the workplace and workflow. And then our last 2 products are early intervention and return to work, which again are coaching products, but more specifically designed to help people who are struggling, maybe from pain or they're returning to work after being rehabilitated from an injury. So we'll talk through that as well. So before we go into the detail of our shoulder training and our new coach app, which is the subject of this webinar, just quickly take you through the suite of solutions that we have so that you can see where it fits into the bigger picture. So our starter training relies on a wearable sensor. So for those that can see my camera, this is one of our sensors. Now this can clip on the back of the shirt or on the arm to measure either back risk or shoulder risk. And it gives the worker wearing it real-time notification so that when they make a movement that is hazardous or less than ideal or has a high chance of causing an injury, it beeps and vibrates and gives them that real-time notification. We then also provide that feedback back to them through a mobile application. And in that app, they can see the types of movements they're making, and it also gives recommendations on what they could do to avoid those movements. And this solution is very effective. So we see the hazardous movements that people make reduce anywhere from 30% up into the 70s, 80s, 90%. So the theory being make less movements, have a less chance of getting an injury. The second solution that quickly show you guys is our task risk assessment product. So this is called SoterTask. This is a sensorless technology. So how it works is you can just take a video of anybody and our algorithm, our neural network in fact, but our vision processing algorithm will work out all the different body parts, where they are, and then work out the postures and angles of all the different parts of the body and how long they spend in these postures. And that can be really good for doing task risk assessments. So working out where the risk lies in a task, and if you look at a bigger picture, where your risk lies in an organization so that you can eliminate, substitute, or engineer risk out of your business. So we've got 3 videos to show you. So we'll start with the left. Just remember these are normal videos. We've done nothing special. We've just run them through our algorithm, through our solution. Okay, video number 2 in the middle. It's a little bit slow. I think it's a very big video in reality. But here you can see it's tracking 2 people. And my personal favorite, it's nothing to do with an industrial workplace, but it's an ice skater. And ice skating is, very fast movements, very rapid changes in direction. So we'll play this video on the right and you'll see how the person is tracked as she makes all these movements. So I think this really demonstrates the power of the technology. And she'll do a spin in a couple of seconds and you can see that the spin is tracked the entire way through, which is really cool. So again, we've got our customers using this to change the workplace itself. There's no sensors. It just makes the task assessment really, really quick, really scalable as well, because all people need is a phone. So great for if you've got like remote sites or many, many different sites. And then also allows the assessor to accurately understand what happened to the person and what's causing different risk factors. We take all the data from our sensors, from people going through coaching programs. We take it from the products like SoterTask, and we build job profiles for our customers. So that's what you see on the right-hand side. That's how we help them hire the right people. So you can get a breakdown of a particular role, what types of activities that person is doing, what types of hazardous movements they're making, all the angles they're putting their spine and their shoulders into, and we're soon to incorporate twist into this as well, so that will happen later this week. So all these different movements that the person's potentially going to be exposed to, which is really helpful for them deciding how to design like a pre-employment check, for example. The second bit of our dashboard looks at all the people going through our training products. I'll take you through that in more detail as part of this presentation. And then really quickly on the last solution, so we've got a mobile application. It's become like a platform for us. So we can deliver new starter training to these people combined with the sensor through the app. Or we can change the training package, and we have early intervention and return to work training packages as well. So that's a full look at the suite of our solutions.
So why have we developed a new product? Last year, our device and training was mainly focused on back injury prevention. And in the end of the year, one of our clients in John of God Hospital reached out to us after using our back sensor and asked if we could develop something for shoulder injury preventions as well. St. John of God Healthcare are groups of hospitals across Australia and New Zealand, and the job roles that require shoulder injury prevention training there are nurses, surgeons, catering, all the rest. So we started the project together, and first step was to identify what movements we want to track and notify for. And what we did, we recorded raw data within the hospital facility, and this raw data were paired with video data. Afterwards, we marked the data, matched data from the sensors against video data, and developed machine learning algorithms that could track hazardous movements that we wanted to identify. Then we moved to the next step, that was testing of algorithms within development team. And big step here was to find proper thresholds for notifications. Because since we are coaching solution, for us, it's important to make people aware with our notifications and to drive them to change their behavior. At the same time, we don't want to have a lot of false positive notifications and notifications that are not relevant for the people. And on the stage, we also used surface electromyography so that signs of fatigue were matched with notification parameters. So after algorithms were developed, we came back to the hospital facility and tested algorithms on site. And as a result of the testing, we received very positive feedback from the staff members, and we also reduced the number of hazardous shoulder movements. And as a result of this trial, we identified further steps for product development. We decided to build app that supports both back and shoulder functionality and to develop shoulder training. And at the moment, our new device is interchangeable between back and shoulder mode. So we can prevent shoulder and back injuries, and workers can go from one program to another one, and thus enabling continuous learning of the workers. Decision of what hazardous movements to track and identify was based our team, healthcare and ergonomic experience, scientific literature, and insights from our clients. So we decided to identify three main hazardous movements. It's pulling and pushing movements, arm elevation movements, and such characteristics as static and repetition.
Okay, so now I will show you the app itself. So we've recorded a couple of videos that shows how the worker actually interacts with the app. So the first video I'll show you is how the worker sets up a profile within the mobile application. So before they get to this point, our customers decide or work with the workforce to decide if people are going to access the app on their personal phone or if they're going to supply a tablet where multiple people can access the app and then their data and information. Typically what we see is that they supply the tablets, but they say that if people want to put it on their personal phone, they can, and then 95% of people actually put it on their personal phone. It's quite a good app to use. So someone creates a new account, it looks like this. So some of the boring things, using email and password and name. Then we ask them a couple of characteristics about themselves so that we can get a better understanding of them, and it trains our algorithms in a small way as well. Okay, as simple as that, they're now signed up. They scan the QR code of the device that they've been given, and here they select which program they're going to do. So here's 3 of our programs available: 2 back programs and the shoulder. We'll be doing the shoulder today. Quick setup of the device to put it into shoulder mode. Here we are telling them that it's a 10-day training program. Most of our programs are 10 days. We've worked with psychologists to work out that wearing the device for about 10 days seems to be the optimal amount of time. We tell them how to wear the device, in this case in shoulder mode. We let them know that they're not going to have notifications from the device, so no beeps and vibrations for the first 8 hours. That allows us to set a baseline for them. And then a couple of questions around how they feel, I guess, at the start of the program. Okay, and that's it. That's how quick it is to set up. What they would do is they would put the device on their arm, on their dominant arm, and they would go to work. The second video I'm going to show you is how the data is available to the user. So we've made a really strong and on purpose, I would say, a decision to display as much data to the user as possible. So we want the user to get all the insights and the understanding. We don't want that just going to a manager. We don't want that sitting on a piece of paper in someone's desk. We actually want the worker to understand what sort of movements they're facing, what they could do potentially to improve. So here's a worker that we're going to show you. I'm going to play the video in a second. The worker is actually myself in this case. I was building a piece of IKEA furniture. So we'll play the video. We can see that I was making a lot of pushing and pulling movements. I was making arm elevation movements as well while I was building this bed. See, it allows the user to scroll through, to see the different types of movements they were making. It's able to see their history. And this is what our tutorials look like. So there's a tutorial to do every day. If I pause it here, there's 2 ways our tutorials can be. So what you're seeing at the moment is a more static version of the tutorial. So it's a picture and words. We also have the ability to have videos as well within our tutorials. So some of our customers now are developing videos to show their people. The other thing about the tutorials, which is not as relevant in Australia as it is in some other countries, but it might be, is the ability to have tutorials in any language as well. So we've got our apps translated at the moment into Spanish, into French, Korean, German, and Japanese. And the final thing is that all this content can be customized. So we can work with our clients or in your clients, if you're a potential partner of ours, to develop completely new training packages. It might be the training packages that they're using already in their workplace so that there's a consistent message across the learnings that the workers are receiving. So everything in the tutorial space is very customizable. So we'll ask a couple of questions at the end. If they answer them correct, great. If they answer them incorrect, it actually takes them back to the page with the information so that they can, I guess, relearn or reread the information. Okay, so that's what the worker sees every day. There's a bit more information towards the bottom that I didn't scroll down to, but that's a pretty good summary of what they see every day. And typically what they're doing is they're going into the app at the end of their work shift or at a work break. So, you know, it might be just before lunch, just after lunch. It's important to know that this device works completely independently from the phone, so that it doesn't require them to take their phone onto the workplace. But to see their data, obviously they need to then sync the device with the phone so that they can see their data. But it doesn't have to be done on the shop floor. All this data is captured and really important to enable safety professionals or managers or the organization itself to understand what sort of risk that the workforce are facing, and then identify work groups and work tasks and even potential people to give extra coaching to, or redesigning the workforce, our workplace, or introducing new tools. So we've got many examples of our customers using the data for this. But what I'll do is I'll now stop sharing this presentation for a second, and I'll share what our dashboard looks like. So this is a demo company of the dashboard. So we can see we've got a number of people going through the training package at the moment. We'll look at someone first who's going through the back training program. So let's look at Susanna. So we can see Susanna is making, these are the number of hazardous movements she's making per hour on each day that she's going through the program. So on day one, you know, she was up around the 12 point something mark. This is the day when she has no notifications. And then the notifications start and the number of movements she was making has dropped. If you want to get a breakdown of what types of movements, so here we have poor lifting, static postures, back twisting, intense lifting, and repetition. So she's got a lot of smaller poor lifting movements, a lot of twisting as well, which is interesting. And you're able to scroll by day as well. So if you want to see an hour by hour breakdown of what's happening on a day, you can do that. So this graph is really interesting on the 3rd of October. The last hour of her work shift, she had a huge spike. So as a safety professional, what I would be doing with this is I'd be trying to catch up with her, with Susanna, and understand what tasks she was doing at the time, and have a conversation as well around what could be done differently to reduce the need to make so many hazardous movements. And this is where we can start moving up the hierarchy of controls. So this is where we get into the engineering or the substitution sort of controls, because our experience has shown that Susanna will have many ideas after this hour, or hopefully will have many ideas of what she could have done differently if the job was designed in a slightly different way. We've got customers that have changed their warehouses to move where they put the high frequent materials that they need to take to a sort of waste level instead of it being on the ground all the time. And we've got examples of cleaning companies that have introduced an additional tool to remove the need for someone to go on their hands and knees to actually clean a shower, but instead they now have a rotating brush that they can stand and use. And I reckon as a team, we've probably got close to 100 other examples as well. So having that conversation, you know, seeing the data, knowing what sort of conversation you're going to have, and then having the conversation with the person who's actually doing the task and was getting all the device feedback is really quite powerful. If we look at another user who's going through the shoulder program, so Daniel, here again, we can see the same sort of movements they're making per hour per day. These are the specific back movements that we're picking up. So pushing and pulling, we're looking at repetitive arm movements, overexertion, arm elevation, and then static arm elevation is when you're holding your arm in a static position for a really long time. So again, you can scroll through day by day and you can see the different breakdowns of movements. What's coming hopefully next week is the summary sheet of all this, so that you can see a summarized version of everyone who's going through the back or the shoulder program. Okay, I'll stop sharing this and I'll go back to the presentation. So at this point, it's good to say that there's a Q&A at the bottom, and we'll answer any questions if we get them. So if you want to ask any questions about what you've seen so far, or if you have any other questions in general, just jump on that Q&A section and ask us a question, and we'll do that at the end of the presentation. We've only got a couple of slides to go. So if you're thinking and wondering, you know, I've got a big workforce, and having all these people trying to access a mobile phone might be a challenge, you're on the right track. So the phone and the SoterCoach app works really well with smaller workforces. It works really well with very engaged workforces, and it works especially well with very diversely located workforces. So if we've got customers working in the bottling industry, for example, where they jump in a truck and they go from shop to shop, you know, setting up displays of drink bottles, and for them the app works very well. We've also got customers who have warehouses in some of our warehouses we work in, thousands of workers coming in. So, and that could be over multiple shifts. Then the complexity of setting everyone up with a tablet or asking them to use their phone is a bit too challenging. So we have a second implementation option called Clip and Go. Clip and Go is basically the charging box that you see here with a tablet inside it. And how this works is a worker can come and they can take any device and through the tablet, enter their employee ID or scan their employee badge. They scan the device as well, and they pop it on their back, they pop it on their shoulder, and they're ready to go to work. So it's a really quick implementation method. And then when they return at the end of the day, they scan the QR code of the device back. They get to see a brief of their data. So not as much detail as the SoterCoach app, but the same data at least. So they get to see their data, they pop the device back on charge, and they go home. So this is how we roll out the solution to those big warehouses. A couple other solutions that we have embedded in our technology. So the first one is the contact tracing. Obviously, a COVID world, we're seeing some of our customers shutting down their operations because of a COVID outbreak, especially in the US. So we're working with them to help avoid it becoming such a big problem. So people will still catch the virus, unfortunately. They will still probably come to work with the virus if it's not picked up in one of the initial checks that they're doing. You know, they do the temperature checks, but they might not have symptoms immediately. So what they're doing is they're having everyone wear the device. And when the device comes within a certain range of each other, an event is logged. So let's say they become within 2 meters of each other. We've set it up to be 2 meters. An event is logged. We work with our client to decide if we're going to give a warning, so a beep and a vibration at that point. That could warn those 2 people. Or we just log the event and we see how long they actually spent in proximity to each other. And that's all available again on the dashboard, so that if you see that you have an outbreak, you know, you see that John has called in, he says, I've tested positive, you're then able to filter by everyone who's had interactions with John in a particular time frame. And you might choose to then isolate those number of people that potentially have been exposed to John. The second solution that we're launching this week, believe it or not, is the remote office ergonomic assessment. So especially in the UK, but in Australia as well, it's quite relevant. We've got a lot of people working from home these days. In the UK, the legislation has become very clear that employers are responsible for their workers and the workplaces, even if they're working at home. I think we have the same regulations in Australia as well. I think we're actually a bit ahead of the UK, in fact. So I'll play the video, but basically what this allows anyone working from home is to upload a short video of themselves working. We'll see all the postures and positions that they're putting themselves into. And here on the left, we've got like a very poor ergonomic setup. And here on the right, imagine the screen is working. And the second screen is working. Like we've helped that person create like a better ergonomic setup. And then that's logged in a report for your health and safety team. And that basically proves that you've set this person up in a safe workplace, at least an ergonomically safe workplace. Okay, so we now have our customers using it for a year, for 2 years, our solutions. We're averaging around the 50 to 55% mark when it comes to reducing musculoskeletal disorders in year 1. So it's really great to see that. That has largely come off the back of the sensor technology. And now these customers are starting to use that SoterTask technology to improve the workplace as well. So we think, it's an intervention. We've had that year 1 bump in performance. So we're very happy with year 1. And now how we're going to help our customers maintain that in year 2 and 3 is we're going to help them improve the design of a workplace, engineering the workplace to be better. We're going to start using that data to feed into their employment practices as well. So there's a number of things that we can use a suite of solutions for to actually hopefully maintain this awesome improvement number. Now, we put this slide in here to actually give the audience a bit of an understanding of the types of industries that we can work with. And basically, when it comes to industrial workplaces, we're very diverse. So logistics, we've got healthcare, we've got mining, oil and gas, and pretty much everything in between. And the reason we're able to do that is because the human is moving pretty much the same way in all these different industries. They're making the same kind of movements, whether it's the back movements, whether it's the shoulder movements that Anastasia talked about. The reason they make the movements are different. So the reason you make a movement in Amazon, for example, is very different even within the warehouse space to the reason you make it for another warehousing company like DSC Logistics. And it's definitely different to St. John of God Healthcare or Roy Hill Mining Company. So the reasons are different, the movements are the same, but what we found is the suite of technologies are applicable across all the different industries. So it's really cool for us. And we get a lot of insights as well that we can share across companies within an industry and then across industries. Which brings us to the end of the presentation. So we'll see if there's any questions in a second, but if you want to get in contact with myself, I look after the Australian market. So I'm probably the best person to get in contact with if you want to get any further information on our suite of products or on the product that we talked about in most detail today, which is the shoulder training. We've got Anastasia's email address here as well. Do follow us on LinkedIn. So just search Soter Analytics and drop us a follow because that's where we are launching most of the time a lot of our new products. So that's where later this week or early next week, you'll see more detail around the office ergonomic solution that we're launching. And then everything is available at SoterAnalytics.com. So if you want to screenshot this page to keep the details, I'll give you a second. And while we do that, we'll see if there's any questions. And thank you all, by the way. So we'll go through the questions and then we'll... Okay, I've got one question here around unions. So have we ever had pushback from unions and how to overcome the pushback from a union? So I would say in more than half of the rollouts that we do, there's a union involved and we have to work through that process, but we've actually come up with so far a 100% successful way of helping you to do that. So the first way to do it is just be open with the union. Say, this is the solution, this is what we're trying to do, and this is the reason we're doing it. And then also really emphasize to them that each worker is going to see their own data. No one sees more data than the worker themselves. And that's important because they realize that this is not a black box or this is not a complete big brother where it's just management who sees data and the worker is completely blind. But no, the worker actually sees the insights, the data, they get to make their own improvements. It's an engaging product. So that's step one in solving this. Step two is that we have the ability to anonymize data on the dashboard. So when I showed you that dashboard before with all the people's names, for customers where they basically have quite strong unions and they're not able to convince the union initially that the data is only going to be used for, let's call it good and not for performance management, we anonymize those people's names for the customers. So we can see that, you know, we'll see person one, person two, person three, you can still see potentially the work position that they're in, depending on what sort of anonymization we do. So you still might be able to do your analysis by work group, or you do your analysis overall. So looking at all the data as a whole, and then talking to your people to understand what actually happened. Because you can sit on a dashboard and try to understand, which is pretty effective. Or you can talk to people who are wearing the devices and getting all the device feedback. And that's very, very effective. So yeah, that's one way we can do it. Okay, we have another question from a customer actually, how to remove a user's profile from the dashboard. Good question that I don't know the live answer to. So I will definitely follow up after this with the answer to that. There is a way, I just can't remember how to do it. Okay, I have another question around, is anything additional required? I think this is what it means. Is anything additional required to get the device working in shoulder mode? So the device itself, like there's no change to the operating system of how it works. It's set in shoulder or back mode from either the application or from the clip and go setup when a user is taking the device. But the only other thing that you'll need for it working in shoulder mode is, if you guys can see the camera, this arm strap. So you'll need to purchase arm straps as well, because this device actually clips onto the arm strap like this. I don't know if I can do this in the video. So this device actually clips onto the arm strap, and now it can be worn on the arm. You take it off and it's ready for the back. We've got a question on, can you measure either shoulder or back or can you get data on shoulder and back simultaneously? So how we've designed it on the shoulder, on the coaching mode, is that you wear one at a time. So you only wear the back or you only wear the shoulder. The reason for that is, again, from working with a psychologist, we actually worked with one in the UK, and she let us know, or from testing basically, and looking at the results, and her conclusion was that having training from both devices at the same time was too complex. Now, having said that, we've got clients out there that are wearing both at the same time on more of a custom project. So we've got a mining company in Australia who's actually wearing 2 shoulder sensors and a back sensor at the same time. They're not getting coaching at this stage, but we're measuring different risks that they're exposed through a 2-week period. So in that case, yeah, we can set it up to wear multiple simultaneously, but it's not our plug and play solution. Okay, and that actually looks like all the questions for now. So again, these are our email addresses. This is our website if you guys want to follow up with anything or check out more information. And yeah, thank you for your time. Thanks for attending, everyone. We had quite a large group attend, which was great. So thank you all for your time.